Her story deals with a subculture of heavy metal music that some feel is sending a dangerous message to your kids.
The forces of evil on the dark side of devil right.
And I want to talk tonight about the devil and demons and witches and wizards.
And we just mix it up with hardcore and aggression and come out with something we think's an original sound.
Loud, fast, heavy, you know.
Well, what do you got?
What do you got?
You're listening to Riff Worship, the podcast that likes to answer the age-old question, what makes a riff? Why do we care about riffs? Talking about some of our favorite albums containing riffs, talking with people who make really great fucking riffs. I'm one of your hosts, Austin Paulson. With me, as always, is Dylan Adams and Justin Swindle. Wait. What up, Swindle?
Hi, how you doing?
Just kidding. It's our good friend and basically fourth mic at this point, David from Atre Bilis. Yay!
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah,
pleasure to be here.
It's wonderful to have you.
Fourth time?
I don't know. We had a chat around Ormside. Then I know we did the Halloween episode with Midian. I think this might be third.
This is third,
I think. Yeah,
but it's a good one. This is a chat that has been a long time coming. We have done an interview. We've tried to do several interviews, but we did one big interview with a member of this band. We've been sitting on it for a while, but you know, you've been on tour. You've been doing stuff with Fulci Rots as well. Man, tell me your history with Damaged and Purified in Pain, because I feel like this is obviously a very important band to you, but we could have talked about any of their records, but you showed me this one in particular, and I feel like this is the one that sticks out in their discography. But like, please tell me what you think of this record.
Yeah, I would agree. It's a very different album by Damaged standards, which we came to learn from Maddie as well. Thank you for the chat, Maddie. Damaged always felt like caged chaos, and their energy really can't be understated for the time that they were around in the scene that I was a part of. They seemed like a band that always should have been bigger than they were, but they were incredibly respected, and it felt like the entire nation of underground heavy music supporters was always holding the banner high for Damaged. Why this record? I mean, it's very different, and I feel it's a little misunderstood. I feel like it's an album that grows on you, as long as you're sympathetic to the changes that Damaged made to their sound for this and their image. It's also the 25th anniversary of this record, and it also features an American on the record. So it feels like a coalescing of worlds. You know, we got some Midwest folk and we got some down under folk, and here we are.
I love it. Yeah. I had no connection with this band until you showed me this record. I think I was like, we were chatting, and you were like, you have to listen to this. And it seems like this is a record that you like champion and recommend to a lot of people. And I was not expecting what I heard. And like Cage Chaos is certainly a perfect descriptive, like it. At times it feels like, especially, you know, and we'll chop in parts of the interview we did with Matt Skitz Sanders, drummer of Damaged. It feels at times like he is going to explode if he's like going so fast. Like it's like the bus from Speed. If he goes any slower, he's just gonna blow up. I loved it, and I definitely am glad that we had the opportunity to chat with him, and now we get to talk about this record. Dylan, what's your history with Damaged?
Absolutely none. We started talking about doing this kind of long form project that you've been working on with David for quite some time. And I went, all right, whatever this is, it's going to be fun. It's got to be interesting. And then like hearing who's tied to the project, obviously being Kevin from Brutal Truth. And you know, his really recognizable vocals. But hearing this record for the first time, because this is where I started with the band, is interesting because it sounds like this great blending of grind, black metal, some tech metal in there as well. But there's also a great tie-in with some of their older stuff. So I went backwards, you know, hearing Token Remedies and going, okay, this is interesting. This album kind of sounds like an album from that era, the mid to late 90s, right? The production's that way. There's some kind of structural choices on there that are really interesting to me. But hearing this first project, it didn't seem too out of left field for me because I had no experience with the band. And then going back and listening to it, it's like, oh, okay. Some of these tracks feel like they could fit on like the Mortal Kombat soundtrack. Some of the stuff feels like that really early 90s, like where underground metal was meeting like club music and, you know, all of those different soundtracks. Like I always think of the Judgment Night soundtrack with all the rap rock hybrids and stuff. This was interesting. This is a fun record, honestly. It's really dry sounding. The drum performance on here makes it sound like it's not real. It just makes it sound like it's, hey, here's what happens when the guitar player writes drums. It's just intense in your face. I think Austin alluded to the Injustice for All production on this, which I can't wait to talk about. But this was a fun fucking record.
That's sick. That makes me really happy because I hope anyways that most people that I share this record with enjoy it. I know that this record and Token Remedies Research is a mainstay on tour. We typically jam both these records, you know, at least a couple of times each tour, and it really seems to put an extra wind in our sail. So that's awesome. Thanks for giving it the time and listening to it. And yeah, it feels like I'm sharing a little piece of my world and my happy place with my friends. So yeah, excited to talk about it some more.
Yeah. Well, shall we dive into the backstory of this band a little bit?
Let's dive.
Yeah. Self-described Australian hatecore. I love that. They're like all of their, you know, you go on their website. I think I had to use like the Internet Archive or like the Wayback Machine to find it, but it's plastered on everything. Formed in Ballarat. Is that how you say it? I'm a stooge and have no idea.
That's it. Ballarat.
Well, how would you describe Ballarat?
It's a big, small country town. I only really had reason to go there to play rural shows myself, so I didn't have too many friends out there. So I'm a little ignorant as to, you know, how the community is out there, but it's generally a lot more yellow looking as far as it's just kind of got a dustier appearance because you're kind of heading more toward the outback, and it's hot. So it's more Aussie, mate. It's more ochre.
So what was the movie that we all watched when we were together?
Body Melt, dude.
Yep.
Oh, fuck
Classic.
yeah.
Classic.
That fucking poor ass kangaroo.
I pictured that immediately.
I was thinking it too. Oh, man. So, Damage formed in Ballarat in 1989. The initial lineup consisted of Matt Skitz Sanders, Jamie Ludbrooke, and Jared. Do you know I don't know how to pronounce his last name. It almost kind of looks like Bongiorno. Sorry, Jared.
As good as mine.
Sorry, buddy. And then Paul Medic. So kind of 4-piece. Not long after, Jared and Medic were replaced by Matt Silcock on guitar and, of course, Chris Hilly Hill on guitar.
The two guitars together and their styles, it seemed to really work, and it just had this nice sort of blend of, maybe one was like a more extreme heavy death metal guitar, and then the other one was a bit more of a mid thrashy sort of guitar. Sort of, yeah, I feel like the styles just sort of blended.
Fucking Hilly's playing on all their shit is insane. Like, what I think I really liked about listening to this record and listening to their discography was like, I mean, regardless of how fast he's going, you can still hear like every like nuance, and like it's genuinely insane, like how he's able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe now's a good time to talk about the damage sound and kind of what makes the damage sound the damage sound. But Hilly is a monster rhythm player. Like he's a monster. None of these albums were recorded with click tracks, so this is effectively just a product of the band rehearsing together and playing together. You know, nothing's on the grid. And I agree, his performance on this it's truly nuts. The speed of his down picking and how he's able to articulate down picked chords and not just arpeggiated notes is really impressive. And he doesn't solo, but he will use overdubs to accentuate a lot of riffs. Kind of like how Trey of Morbid Angel would add these tiny little details with guitar noises. I feel like has really influenced Hilly. So he's got a very interesting style about him. And another thing that I thought was interesting is he fits your hypothesis with the iron bolts.
Yes.
Did you want to explain this?
We've talked about it a little bit on this show, but it's just like this beautiful running gag of like, and you know, I feel like every time we brought it up to somebody, they're like, "Huh, yeah, that's like I kind of get it." But unfortunately, if you get an Ironbird, a BC Rich Ironbird, you might go bald, and there's a lot of science to prove this out there, though. And I'm not convinced. There's one person that we know of. Who is that, Dylan?
Oh, Rutan.
Eric Rutan is maybe the one outlier in this, but I'm not. He might just have a really good piece on him, like just a really nice wig. But we'd have to. But most of the time, there's some great players who sport the Ironbird, and you know they unfortunately sold their soul, sold their luscious locks for great riffs.
It just keeps running. That's it.
I feel like you need some sound effect with just like a running tally of how many people are bald and how many people have got a full head of hair to play the Ironbirds.
Oh, God.
But yeah, Hilly, mate, you know, he fell into this camp. But yeah, their sound, like how would you describe their sound?
Oh, man. I mean, it's fucking filthy, for one. And maybe that's like partly due to because they didn't technically play through an amp on this record, and I'm assuming maybe the other records. What was the sound is created? I mean, a lot of it's, you know, the character and the hands, but I would also say the distortion on here is fucking bonkers, and it is what's the actual like effects pedal that they plugged into?
Yeah, so unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to talk to Hilly, but on Purified in Pain, I don't know about the other records, but Riley has been a well of information for my curiosities. So shout out to Riley. But according to Riley, who has played in bands with Hilly, the preamp was a Zoom GFX8 multi-effects pedal, and he was running that into either a head or a power amp, basically just to push signal into a cabinet, which was then mic'd up. I believe it was either an Alesis RA300 or it just says a Marshall monoblock. Now in Melbourne, the Marshall 9100s or the 9200s were very popular. They were the big gold dual monoblock power amps. They weighed a ton. I had a couple myself, so that checks out. And then there was, Riley has said, and I quote, "Of no consequence is that he borrowed my iconic red Marshall 1968 cab for overdubs in the awful black metal tone section in Conman."
Thank you, Riley. I appreciate that.
with like bringing up that that's essentially an early form of what's really common now in any recording and touring situation, right? With like these Kempers and Neurals and Axe effects and the Helix stomp and all the, like, that's just an early version of that. Those, and you mentioned the old Marshall mono blocks. Those are the, God, who had them? Steph Carpenter. I think those were a big component of his sound for so long.
Huge. Yeah.
Massive. And it's so funny to hear it was recorded with early effects processing or processing unit. And it sound, I think the standard rhythm tone on this sounds pretty fucking cool.
I do too. It's very mid forward, and so it cuts through the mix. If I could make this album, like if I was able to design this album, I would have loved to have heard the dirty, slinky bass tone that Mohawk was synonymous for, especially on Token Remedies Research on this record, because there is just so much headroom. There's so much space in the mix for a really loud, dirty, disgusting bass. And that's not what we got on this album.
And then you had the bass player, Mohawk, who was into some more of the garagey punk, like even like Seattle grunge and things like that, that I didn't particularly like. But when you brought all those elements together, like even the bass sound that Mohawk had was just like a thick sort of heavy, grindy sort of bass tone. It wasn't like pretty and nicely manicured and poppy. It was just heavy and dirgy.
Speaking of Mohawk, Jason Mohawk Parker, I should mention at first Jamie was the band's original bassist, but they got Mohawk in to relieve Jamie of his bass duties, and so thus you kind of have this lineup of the band. They released the demo in 92, The Art of Destroying Life, which you can listen to. I found it on YouTube, as well as their debut record through Black Hole Records in 93, Do Not Spit, which Skitz was like, out of all of the records, he seemed like particularly fond of this era and the sound and the performances they captured on this record.
Yeah, from what I understand, this is the album that kind of changed everything for Damaged in the local metal community. It kind of blew up. There's a fantastic video clip for Nails on YouTube, but it really does capture the energy that was a part of all their shows. I think this, Do Not Spit may have also been, a time before there was too much inner turmoil or, internal conflict. And so Maddie reports that, the vibes during the Do Not Spit era were unsurpassed. They were the most positive and happiest times. But it also seemed very local with Do Not Spit, which again I think is like a big part of the reason why they were so well respected was the the artwork for Do Not Spit is actually a photo. There's a very central train station in Melbourne CBD called Flinders Street Station, and you walk down these ramps to change to your different train terminals. And on these tiles, these porcelain tiles, there are these stencils that have been painted on Do Not Spit. And it was, it was to stop people from just like spitting on, public property. So I thought it was interesting that they, had obviously come from Ballarat down to Melbourne, seen this and thought, you know what, we're gonna use this. So yeah, there was just, it was very much like I don't want to say necessarily communal, but it felt very homely almost to that scene. But yes, that's it. And most of the old guard that had been following Damaged forever considered Do Not Spit to be the Damaged album.
One of the interesting kind of bits of information that we came across or at least that I came across in, doing research for this band was like how polarizing some of these records are for a lot of people, especially Purified in Pain, coming from, you know, a very lauded kind of output with Jamie. But I don't know. I mean, with being an outlier, I feel like I'm able to enjoy both because they're both like insane vocalists for one. I mean, when we talk about Token Remedies and like how Jamie was recording like some of his vocals is crazy, and it really makes the performance like that much more like unhinged and like I mean, it's such a fun listen.
And Jamie's vocals, because they had more of a like a hardcore-ish and different to most of the extreme metal bands that were getting around in the early 90s. So it sort of created a totally different sort of vibe. I like the way that he did his vocal parts, like the way that he was so dedicated to how that was put together, and he was very particular about it. It was meticulous, and it was there was a lot involved. But I understand that from even like sort of trying to look at it from an outsider's point of view, that there was that much packed in there, and it was that intense that I don't think that he wanted to sort of there was no half-assing the actual recording side of doing that. So he really put a lot of time into those vocals, and I give him credit for that. Like, he knew what he wanted to do. He had a vision and he executed it. And that's something that not all vocalists do. Like, a lot of vocalists will just do, you know, the one paragraph or the whole 4 lines or whatever, and then they'll record the next part. But this was done like, you know, sometimes even down to 1 word.
You know, you listen to Kevin's performance on this record, and I feel like, I don't know, I feel like he does his own thing while also kind of, I don't want to say like paying tribute, but I feel like he does justice to like the band's sound. Like, it's not like too far off from what you might have heard on previous records.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, like, what other vocalists do you think we know that could possibly replace Jamie Ludbrooke? Like, I can't think of a whole heap.
No. Dylan, I'm gonna put you on the spot because I don't know.
Yeah. To keep that kind of intensity.
Yeah.
And just that kind of rapid fire, almost blasting style of vocal performance he has. Yeah, there's not a lot that I can come off the top of my head that I could think of.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't either. It's the only other singer I could imagine singing over this music would be like a non-clean singing Corey Taylor almost. That's like the closest I
could see that.
Think of. Because Jamie was so rapid fire, and there was a book that Hilly wrote. Unfortunately, an ex-girlfriend of mine borrowed it and misplaced it when she was moving house, which would have been an amazing resource for all these conversations. But we did ask Skitz about what it was like recording with Jamie, and it was pretty interesting. Overdubs were done down to the word, because Kevin wasn't reported to record like that and still maintain such an intense performance. It should really be respected a lot more. To the people that are diehard on Jamie, they're 2 very different instruments, but you know, I don't think it's fair to. I don't think it was fair for people to compare these 2 as apples to apples or oranges to oranges, because they were still very different, but still similar enough that it complemented, you know, the chaos that is damaged.
Yeah, there was some negativity surrounding Purified in Pain when it was released.
What was that negativity? largely, yeah.
I think stylistically, and I think also vocally, because it was, Jamie had been there for those three previous releases, that people just, that's how it goes. Vocalists seem to be something that people can't get past sometimes. And that always creates some sort of drama. Every time a band who's got some sort of solidified career or something's going a certain way and then that vocalist is gone, people either shy away from it or they will hang around to see what happens, and they either like it or they absolutely hate it. And you see this happen all the time. There's the constant barrage of online abuse from people about certain bands, and this guy's not good, and this guy's will never fill the shoes, and blah blah. And it's like, I don't know, like
mentioning the vocals on the prior record, it really hit me with, who does this remind me of? Like, what is this vocal styling? And it's a very dry sounding vocal, right? Like, it's very kind of just upfront, kind of mid-range focus, just right there. And I kept thinking to actually back to the first time I heard Psychroptic, which was on the Observant album, which I can't remember the vocalist name.
Jason Pepiet. Yeah.
Thank you.
I didn't think about Jason Pepiet.
Makes me think of like that first vocal performance that he gave. It's like, oh yeah, this is 100% that. And it just so happens they're from the same region. And it's like, oh, 100%. Hit me immediately. Like two completely different sounding bands though. But vocally, for that first record, like he sounds really similar. And I'm sure, he's from that area. I'm sure, at least to my knowledge. I'm just a fucking caveman.
Yeah, no, that's a really intelligent observation, because I can hear Pepiet singing over Damaged for sure.
It seems like this definitely elevated them because they were able to like get some touring possibilities over the years. I mean, they were on at least a handful of dates, or at least a few of Cannibal Corpse's like first Australian tour, like in '95. I think I saw some pictures from that. It's kind of cool to see like some of the bands that came through, and Skitz was kind of telling like he looked at some of those memories like fondly, where like all the people were very cool, and like it sounded like they even brought it back to the States or wherever part of the world they were from, and kind of like shared Damaged with other people. But I mean, it looked like they'd opened for like Fear Factory and Bolt Thrower and a handful, maybe even Entombed, I think I saw at some point.
Yeah, it was Morbid Angel, Strapping Young Lad, I think Skitz also mentioned. Yeah, I mean, there were definitely other bands playing around, but the idea that Damaged were probably the first option for most of these promoters is really cool, I think. Yeah, I never got to see them on those supports, but I'm sure that they would have been playing with a voracious appetite to let the overseas bands know how it's done. But
it sounded like, before, I know there's an EP in between these two, but before the release of Token Remedies Research, I believe Skitz says, and maybe I can edit in here, they were supposed to support Fear Factory. I believe someone in the band may have had like some medical issues that they had to tend to, and then they were going to ask Damage to be support again, but for reasons X, Y, and Z, they just decided to call it quits. And it seemed like there was quite a bit of maybe at least a year gap. And then maybe with the offer from Rotten Records, who we've talked about in previous episodes, Acid Bath and such, that they ultimately came back together.
Promos were sent out to a slew of labels. Rotten Records came back to them, and Damaged were enamored by seeing that Acid Bath were on the label. And so that put a second wind into Matt to reach out and kind of get things moving again. And so Token Remedies would have been the first album on Rotten Records. And at that point, I feel like they saw that as a door that was ajar for them to hit the US market, but ultimately didn't end up ever touring there. So that's my understanding. But
yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, of course, for those listening, Rotten Records was like a label co-founded by Spike Cassidy of DRI, who I believe is credited with engineering, producing, and mastering Token Remedies as well.
I listened to some of the albums I've done, and I've got no problem with listening to them. Those ones, though, I have just shelved in the back of my mind somehow. Whatever that means, I don't really know. But I feel like I can't deal with Token. I'm disappointed about Token Remedies because of the lack of material that we didn't write, and we re-recorded some old songs for some dumb reason, which there's no purpose for that really. There was no purpose for doing Migraine and stuff like that on Token or Internal Dismemberment. I just don't see the point in it. Or Dust or whatever it was. That seems sort of counterproductive to me that happened, but I don't know. It just, to me, it didn't pull off the way that I wanted to pull off. Like, I would go back and I'd re-record that album, but it is what it is. It's done. That's the way it goes. So the vibe was good, but I wouldn't say it was the same. It didn't have the same level of what was going on when we were doing Do Not Spit. Like, Do Not Spit, I felt like the energy and the vibe was just, it was right.
Matty expressed that Token Remedies Research is his least favorite, or at least among some of his least favorite work, which is wild to me because it's probably my favorite Damaged release. And I think it sounds amazing. I think the mix is crazy.
The mix on that record is pretty. The contrast between the mixing and the production on that record and Purified in Pain is wild. It's very crisp sounding. It's clean without it just going, oh, it's been ran through, you know, every Pro Tools unit you could imagine. It's clean. The performances are all highlighted. You can hear every single instrument on the album. As soon as I listened to that after listening to Purified in Pain for quite some time, it's like, oh, what happened? But each production has its own charm. But that thing is, you could release that now with the same production and it would fit right in.
It's pretty nuts to think that came out in 99.
Yeah.
As well. 99, 97, 90,
97.
97.
Yeah.
Like if you stack that up against the other bands that were on Roadrunner Records at that time, I mean, this was 2 years before Slipknot self-titled. Like imagine if that was to be released on Roadrunner Records at that time. Man. Before the new metal stuff kicked off. Like this band would have been fucking massive.
Dylan, before we even got on the air, Dylan was like, what did you say? You were like, you mentioned Roadrunner.
Every single, even on Purified in Pain too. Like there is so much influence from that early 90s highlighted era of the Roadrunner Records catalog. I mean, there's, we mentioned Fear Factory before. I think Hildy's guitar playing is very Dino-esque with a lot of that right hand, how he plays, what he's doing, the lack of solos, right? Like just technically proficient, like a Kalishnikov or something like that. Just blowing through it. And like, there's kind of early Machine Head vibes on both of these records. Fear Factory, I hear a little SYL even as well with some of the guitar stylings. Like it's 100% all over it. Like Yeah, Roadrunner, 100%. Like there's the massive influence of that label during that time frame on everything in extreme music and underground metal was just massive.
Yeah. And personal opinion here, but I feel like it would have been right at home there, and I feel like it would have been a fucking great release for that label at that time.
To listen to that record and then to hear Skitz being kind of like, doesn't seem to have like the fondest memories of it. It seems to be like a little bit of a tumultuous time for the band, and some of those recording sessions where to the point where he just like removed himself after he recorded his parts. He just like didn't want to be like maybe like a negative influence on other people's performances. So he just like left, I think, before the vocals even were recorded.
Yeah. That's definitely what he remembers. But to somebody who hasn't got that emotional residue, dare I say, like just a completely neutral listener approaching that material. I mean, you can hear the tension in these songs, which is why it sounds so unhinged in like the perfect way. So I feel for the members, but it does feel like a gift to the listeners.
Yeah.
I'm happy that it was archived.
There was always inter-band issues. Like it was always like, this person doesn't like that, and this person doesn't like what he says, and there was issues that were brewing the whole time, and that's what kept that tension even live. Like there was arguments on stage. There was arguments at quite a few gigs where in the middle of a song, there's abuse being hurled at each other. And it's like, why? This is ridiculous. But it fueled the energy to go even more feral, whether that's good or bad. But for people that were watching, I think it was a good thing because it was getting unhinged, and it was still brutal as hell. So it was like, well, this is what it is. If the band members hate each other, the band members hate each other, and that's the way it is. So there was a bit of tension rising through the recording of Token Remedies Research, and it got to the point where I remember I finished my drums and I just split. I left the studio and I never went back. I didn't watch any of the vocals being recorded. I didn't watch any of the other parts. I saw guitar parts being recorded, and I saw some of the bass, and I left before the vocals got done. So sometimes there was differences of opinion, and this leads to some of the conflict. But everybody in that band is responsible for conflict. So, it's there's a lot to say. I mean, I could probably talk about it for a week and it still wouldn't be fully revealed. It's just ridiculous. But it is what it is, and people change, people's ideas change, people's attitudes either get better or worse or whatever. And it makes it either difficult or it makes it easy. So, and that's not to say that I haven't been difficult, because I know that my attitude towards some of it was pretty difficult for some people to deal with too. So I'm not blameless in saying that my particular outlook on things and the way that I dealt with some of those things wasn't smooth for anybody to deal with. And if I got in a bad mood, I'd probably throw a snare drum at the wall, which I did a few times. So yeah.
It seems like, at least that the title, Purified in Pain, had been kind of floated around for a little bit. I noticed there's a promo from like 96 where Purified in Pain is like a track on the album. In that kind of like a few years before you get into the studio, how long had you been working on the record? Are there any demos where Jamie is featured? What was, where does that start to begin? Where does that start to form?
I think the writing for that album started sometime in early '98, and Jamie was pretty much nearly at the end of playing in Damaged at that time. He did his final show, I believe it was early '98, so it was around March '98. We played a street gig for some festival that was in Brunswick in Melbourne. And it was there was a bunch of venues, and they're all doing there was mainstream indie, pop, metal, whatever the hell, rock. And we just so happened to do this show like it was on a Sunday on the street, and it was quite good. But that was the last time I think Jamie sang with Damaged. And then we were writing songs at that time. And then we did a couple of demos. We did like 2 demos, I reckon. I don't know if I still have copies of those, but I actually sent those demos to Kevin Sharp sometime in '99, I think.
When did you connect with Kevin? And it sounds like you had Kevin in mind by sending him those demos. Were there other people, or was it just Kevin that you had in mind?
I think at the time, from memory, I just kept thinking Kevin the whole time, because I was a fan of Brutal Truth, and that first album, Extreme Conditions, is just like something that I was like, this is off tap, it's like unhinged, grind, whatever you want to call it.
But Fuller's got a pretty tight connection there too, because did Fuller not bring Bloodduster? Oh, sorry, he bought Brutal Truth out the first time with Bloodduster, because I know he mixed their last 2 records. So I was wondering if Fuller comes into this equation at all, or if it just happened that there's just this. Okay.
Yes, he does.
Okay, cool. Tell us.
So the Brutal Truth tour in '96, the first one, was when we had Chris Wallace singing for us for Damaged, and Jason Fuller put us on, I think, 2 shows. He put us on one show at the Punters Club, and he put us on one show in Ballarat.
Okay, I just need to say to everybody listening, Jason Fuller plays bass in Bloodduster. He is the mastermind behind Bloodduster, and he also runs Goat Sound Studios, who is like the I guess fringe alt metal studio in Melbourne. So yes, sorry, back to Fuller putting you on these shows. Just thought I'd fill in those gaps there to people that don't know yet.
Yeah, Damage got put on 2 of the Brutal Truth supports. And so we got invited because they'd come out, and I think they were staying at Fuller's house in between, like going between places. And I think they spent like, I'm pretty sure it was like almost like a month they were hanging out in Australia. And it just turned into like fucking party. And they were like over at Fuller's house, and there was this one day where Fuller says, "Oh, come on, come over. We're partying. We're fucking gonna get drunk and stuff." So myself and Chris Wallace, because Chris Wallace was living at my house at the time. So we went over there and we got completely fucked up, drunk, and Brutal Truth. We're having a great time, and it was just all the Blood Duster was there, and there's a bunch of other bands there, and it was awesome. It was a pretty good fucking party, actually. Like some of those parties in the mid-90s were pretty outrageous, but that time was great. Like we had such a good time hanging out with Kevin and Dan Lilker and Gern and the drummer Richard, and we just hit it off as along with all the other bands that they became friends with, because there was no pretension there. There was no like, oh, this is the untouchable fucking, ultra serious or any of that. It was just like, how you going? Let's party. Dan Lilker's a great guy. So we got a connection. Then they come out in 98, and I went to the shows. I wasn't playing, but I went to the shows. I went to Ballarat and I went to the Melbourne show, and we went to another party. And same sort of thing. got ruined. And that's when the idea, I think, really sort of set in. Like, oh, maybe we can get Kevin to do vocals. I actually don't remember whether we actually spoke to him at that party about whether we were going to ask him to sing or not, but I'm pretty sure that was already on our minds at the time. Myself and guitarist Hilly, we went to that party, the second one, and yeah.
Yeah, wow. And he was excited to do it. He was like, how did the conversation go about, well, you're over in Melbourne, I'm over, I'm not sure where he was living. It sounds like he may have been quite nomadic at that point.
He was living in Chicago. And I think Brutal Truth split for a while around 99. I think Brutal Truth was over for some reason. So then that sort of solidified that idea of let's get Kevin in Damaged. And also like entertain the idea at the time of getting Dan Lilker to play bass. It was almost like Damage was going to become like Brutal Truth and Damage meshed together, like half. And I was pretty excited about that idea. I think that was after we'd recorded the album. We were talking about that possibility after doing that tour in November of 2000. I think we were talking about maybe Dan Lilker might want to get involved as well. But that didn't happen. But I remember once we found out that Brutal Truth wasn't doing anything, we were like, oh, can we try and figure this out? So we spoke to Rotten Records, and he said, oh, look, we'll get him to Australia and we'll pay for this and this, and we'll get him out to Australia so we can do this album. And Ron from Rotten Records also came out from California to meet up with us, and because we'd never met him before. So he came to the studio for some of the recording, and he was in Australia for about 2 or 3 weeks also. And I think Kevin when he came out. He was in Australia for about, I reckon, about nearly close to 2 months. So we did some rehearsals. Like, he knew what the songs were going to look like and all that sort of stuff, but we went to the studio and rehearsed and like refined things for a period of time before we went to record. And then we also booked a show in July at the end of the recording. So we did that show just before he went back home because it made sense to do that. So it was really exciting and inspirational and totally different like mindset to how Damage had been before, because you're working with a different, something completely different. Like Kevin was had a totally different approach, but it was just a lot of fun. There was a lot of fun involved, and Kevin was a very good bartender, and he knew how to make some wicked cocktails. So I loved it.
I'd love to hear Kevin chime in right now with a couple of his favorite cocktails.
Yeah, right.
Martinis, whiskey sours.
With Kevin coming over, okay, so you have like some time to prepare. How much of the record had been written? What were his contributions? Like, I see also, he's listed along with the band as a producer. Like, what was his overall, contributions to this record and the band?
I think, from memory, some of the songwriting, like as far as like how the songs looked, edit a few things, add a few things. This needs more time. This needs less time. Maybe get rid of this part. Maybe add that part. Like just general songwriting sort of stuff and interjecting with those sorts of ideas, which I really enjoy that process of the songwriting where you're like, oh man, this is going to sound good if you do this. Or even us saying, what if you do these vocals on this riff and just see how that goes. So we were doing a lot of bouncing off of this idea, that idea. Yeah, like there was a lot of cool stuff going on and really enjoyable to just hear this fresh perspective and have someone there sitting there saying, this is what I think.
Dylan, how do you feel about the artwork when you first saw it?
Looks like a Nile record, obviously. It's Egyptian, it's pharaohs, etc. It also looks like a hardcore record from like a New York hardcore band in like the early to mid 90s. The art does not necessarily reflect the sound of the record that you get. But I will say I enjoy the artwork better than I did Token Remedies artwork. I'm lot.
Still trying to figure out what the fuck is on the cover of that record.
Yep. I mean, it looks to me like a severed head in a bathtub, which I could be off. I get it. It kind of does reflect the sound of that record a lot. It almost looks like they're taking over Hollywood or something.
Yeah.
But it is wild. As soon as I saw the artwork for Purified in Pain, I immediately went, okay, is this going to be this type of band? This kind of fits that. And then it's not. It's completely different. And then learning a little bit about what happened with the artwork's even better.
I was looking at the artwork for Purified in Pain quite closely, and I noticed that there was a little vent up above the right statue on the cover. The lighting doesn't quite cover it. And Austin and I were having just a casual Friday chat about the artwork. And Austin noticed that it was credited, the art was credited at this studio. this rehearsal studio. What was it
Oh,
called?
it's hidden in there.
The sound vault? Yeah.
The sound vault. So go on.
No, I mean, we were kind of, throwing it back and forth. Like, okay, we found that it was all right. Here's where the artwork is credited to this location, and we just assumed that maybe there were some like Egyptian figures out in the lobby of this place, and they're like, all right, we're gonna snap an upshot of it, and there's the van, and that's the art.
Is that what happened?
No.
Okay. What happened?
Well, firstly, I'd like to say I had no idea that that's actually on the front cover.
You can see a little ventilation duct above the top right statue. And when I was looking at it, I was like, I'd asked Austin, and I'd also asked Luca, my best friend, and we play music together. He also loves the record. Hi, Luca. We were like, is this a photo from like an exhibition or something? Because it kind of looked like it may have been. And I saw
bizarre.
Yeah, and because of it may not be a ventilation duct, but to me it kind of looked like one in the wall. And I thought, well, okay, the art was credited at this studio space. Damaged may have rehearsed there. This may have just been a photo from these figures that were in this rehearsal space, and that ended up on the cover. But we were curious about it. So
it's the first time anyone's ever said to me that there's actually a Sound Vault credit in there.
Yeah, it was on the Metal Archives thing. It just says like, I looked in the bio, and it's additional notes, artwork, Sound Vault. That's how I even knew to even ask about it.
Yeah, because Craig that worked there at the actual rehearsal place, he seemed like with his computer skills and working with whatever that program was, whether it was like a Photoshop program or something. So we just asked him, because we were rehearsing there every week, and we said, oh, could you help us like put together this CD artwork? He's like, yeah, sure, no dramas. So I remember sitting there doing it with him. I remember sitting there looking at certain elements. He goes, what do you think of this? I'm like, oh, that looks awesome. And at the time, and I still think like the way that he did the little booklet and stuff, like for 2000 era computer graphics, I think it's pretty good.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Yeah. It's definitely it's a time capsule for that time, right? It's awesome.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, I went to my parents' house in Ballarat, and my dad had all of these magazines, and I've been a massive like Egyptian history buff, so I've read tons of stuff about it since I was a child. I really wanted to go and see the pyramids. I wanted to go and see the tombs, whatever, all the pharaoh stuff and the mythology and everything about it. So I was obsessed with this whole idea about Egyptian mythology and the pharaohs. And I came across this article, and I was like, that picture is something that just I really wanted to use. So, I mean, I probably breached some copyright laws there. I mean, lots of bands did. Actually, case in point, in Pale Nazarene, on the Ugra Karma album, they got in a lot of trouble for using the, was it the Krishna picture? Vishnu?
Yeah, they didn't get it licensed? Is that what happened?
And they were highly, yeah. So they had to change that album cover. They got a new version of it after the original one came out, because there was a lawsuit about it. But anyway, yeah, we didn't get into any lawsuits with or anything.
That's great. So I guess it was just a friend at the rehearsal space that you were rehearsing at that helped you pull together this artwork.
Yeah, Craig was really good. Like, we rehearsed there for years and years and years. I did rehearsals there with Hellspawn. I did rehearsals there with the Bremelin. I think there was a couple other bands as well, but Damage rehearsed there for a number of years, up until sometime, I don't even know, probably around that time, Purified and Pain time. We did all the preparation for the tour there as well, like in later in 2000 as well. So, look, I got questioned about the Egyptian theme with the Damage thing. I copped some shit for that. I even saw a couple of reviews when they came out from some magazines, and they said, "What the fuck has this got to do with fucking this?" You know? And they said, "If you're going to do it, the only band that can do it is Nile." And it was like, fair enough, whatever. I'll take the criticism. If you don't like my band, I don't give a fuck either. So it's just, it is what it is. I chose the picture as like something that I wanted to put on there, and it meant different things for me as it probably means different things for other band members or whatever. It was like a cleansing and a starting and a new process sort of thing, if you want to boil it down.
This is great. Is that where the title came from? Is it about mummification and that whole process of preparing a body for the afterlife, or is it otherwise?
Yes,
Mm,
exactly.
cool. Very sick.
So that all tied in with that idea of like Damage has gone through all this shit.
Mm.
Yeah.
Now it's going to
That's
be going into the next
fucking
realm
rules, dude.
of
Okay.
That's so sick.
So, you know, like some people would look at it and they go, "What the fuck have you got an Egyptian themed cover for? Like, it doesn't make any sense." Well, that's my explanation for it, whether whatever that means to someone else. But that's what I thought at the time. I thought, well, that ties in very nicely to what's happening with the band, new moving into a different direction, different things happening. It's almost like a process of that mummification.
Maybe a little bit on the production. It seems like drums were recorded in 2 days over 2 different sessions. Do 3 or 4 hour blocks of that. Scratch guitars during the drum recordings. Then track guitars separately. No clicks on this record. Hilly recorded his guitars in 2 sessions. Kevin did his parts in about 2.5 days, and Terry got the bass done within a full day, which I think you listed it down here. It's a Cort 5-string bass direct into the mixing desk.
Yeah. There was you know, from our sources. Thank you, Riley. That's exactly what it says here. You can probably pop it up on the screen. So Tez or Terry said it was a Cort 5-string bass direct into the mixing desk. Now, I was thinking about this earlier on my run, and I was thinking, I've never been into a recording studio in my life where there aren't some amplifiers there to use. So without speaking with Alex, who recorded the record, or anybody else in the band, I'm really, really curious as to know if this track was used because it was effectively a DI backup and they didn't like the bass tone during mixdown, or if it was a choice to go effectively ampless and just DI straight into the mixing console. As we were talking offline, you know, this has got a bit of an Injustice for All mix about it. And presumably that's because of the bass tone. You know, it's got a very, it's got a tubby, round, kind of ill-defined tone about it. And yeah, I'm just curious and confused as to what was going on with the bass tone on this record. I don't really know. I'm sure the performance was fine, but I'm very curious as to why this wasn't mic'd up, ran through a rig, some other type of distortion pedal like Mohawk clearly would have used a series of. Yeah, just a big question mark there for me.
You know, and that could have added to the reason it was kind of buried in the mix so much. It could have been tonality, could have been, as David said, tonality. Could have been what it was doing. It was probably just following guitars the entire time, anything like that. I mean, there could be numerous reasons as to why they went that route. It is surprising that they didn't use like a preamp or anything like that. I think the Sans amp by this point was universally the standard with that. But there's been certain points in time where I've just recorded straight into a board too. It's like, all right, this is what we're doing. Sure, let's do it this way. And you end up buried in the mix a little bit. But who knows? Could have been numerous things. It seems like everything about the production of this record was just, let's get it done as quick as we can. And maybe that was, we don't have time to A/B a signal or A/B sounds or even attempt to try out an amp, or who knows.
Recorded in July. And then, they released their third and final record. But shall we get into the tracks a little bit here?
Let's do it.
Let's fucking do it. Broken opens the record, and I think it's a fucking hell of an opener. I think you get, like all good openers, you pretty much get like a taste of the whole record here. The opening scream that Kevin does, it's insane. I'm almost convinced, kind of like in the aspect of the drums. It's like it goes on for so long. I'm like, is this real? Like, is this an actual recording, or did they like fuck with it, or like what? But it's awesome.
It's 15 seconds long. Yeah.
It's... Oh,
I know there's points on this album where he does things similar to that, and you can hear where they've kind of got some things layered a little bit to make it seem longer, but this one has none of that. To my ear, it has none of that. This is straightforward. This is like George Fisher doing the Time to Kill Is Now scream or something like that, or Devoured by Vermin. Like, it's that. It's probably one or two takes, and Kevin was like, this is good. This sounds rad.
It very much reminded me of Fisher's introduction to the band on Vile, where, there's that classic story how George had to walk into the washroom. He excused himself because he was just so full of nerves, and he's like, brother, this is your time. And he went out there and he let out that demonic scream that just goes forever that you hear on the record. Kind of feels like the same thing was echoed here with Kevin Sharp. I don't know that he was nervous. He doesn't seem like a kind of guy that would be nervous, but I'm sure that he's just like, all right, everybody's going to know it's me behind this mic, and just let that rip. So it just such a cool way to open the album. I also love that there are samples of lightning just littered through this song.
Yeah.
And it's like, we get it. There's lightning on the album. We get it. There's lightning in the song. Like, I just thought it was very cool.
I do too. Yeah, it's great. It's I feel like it really kind of sets itself apart from the previous records with just like how Blistering and like that the black metal influence is like, front and center on this track. There's definitely some like maybe more like thrashier parts, but for the most part, this is just like a really great like black metal opening track for the record.
Yeah, I would agree. I would also say, Hilly has this uncanny ability to mix the mixture of like black metal riffs with what sounds like power groove riffs, but at just like blistering speed. So he's like somehow finding a pocket in these blasts. And this song is like a fantastic showcase of that. And the other classic damaged sound, which they do a lot with their songwriting, is they will slow riffs all the way down to like a snail's pace. And then it feels like they just blast through into the next riff at a completely blazing tempo again. So they're creating this contrast with tempos that not so many other bands do as often as Damage do. And they did that a lot in this. Well, they did it in this song that I took note of. And Maddie's vocals, they're back. Maddie has quite a few backing vocals throughout the album, but we first hear them on this song, and so those very high, raspy, black metal kind of screams are actually Matty, the drummer. And it's interesting to know that another band that he was singing for called Hellspawn recorded an album just 2 weeks after this. So he was clearly practicing his vocals on top of him putting in however many hours a day he was preparing for the studio. He's a dedicated guy, but yeah.
They were 2 weeks apart, those albums.
Really? Recording?
wow.
Yeah.
So was Hellspawn first or was Damaged first?
Damage went in first, and then Hellspawn went and recorded like 2 weeks after, I think it was. So I'm pretty sure that was like at the tail end of July. Hellspawn, July 2000. I've got a pretty good memory for that at that time, and preparing for that album, and for Hellspawn as well. Like, ironically, with that Egyptian theme as well, which I don't know if many people would even know this and whether or not they like it or care about it or whatever. But the fact is that album, Hellspawn album, is called Lords of Eternity. And that was a book that I read in relation to some Egyptian pharaohs, like a history book that I was reading. And I was inspired by that. And that actual song on the Hellspawn album is about those Egyptian gods.
So you and Terry were pretty busy boys. You're in the studio doing Purified in Pain, and then you're back in the studio.
Yeah, yeah. So we were doing gigs with Hellspawn. We were doing the Damaged album, Hellspawn album, hanging out a lot, doing a bunch of music together. So that was cool. That was a good thing. I got Terry involved because we'd been doing Hellspawn, which was previous to that, it was called Engraved. And Engraved did like a demo and whatever, like back in, I think it was late 98, something like that. And then the band, it was a lineup change with the guitarist and the founder of the band. And then I changed it into Hellspawn. And we just went from there, and then also got it signed up to Rotten Records and all that sort of stuff. So it was a good creative time, like doing those two things at the same time.
I mean, even prior to this, seeing it all kind of like laid out in our notes where it's like, oh, he's also in this band and he did like a tour with another band, like all like just constantly involved in some form of music, at any given time, like outside of Damaged. It was like, man, this guy's nuts. And, this record is like, he is definitely like, a focal point of like every track on here. Like he is able to do like so much in such a short amount of time. Like his fills, like he adds so much character to it. Maybe even where like Hilly is like taking a backseat. I mean, he's just, I don't know. He's just all over the fucking kid. It's crazy.
I agree. I'm sure Dylan probably picked up on this because we've got a very similar ear, as we all do. But it seems like when you're saying that Healy takes a back seat and he's just doing more of like a staccato, palm muting, heavy chug, the groove in those riffs are created by almost like the Pantera feet, like these like burst and triplets that are just like rolling underneath them and just creating these incredible double bass patterns. He also does like a lot of cymbal chokes in the middle of riffs as well and creates these split seconds of pauses while the guitars just continue to just chug on through. And the amount of groove that comes from just the drum compositions feel like they could only have been transpired from playing these songs so much that they've entered this area of comfort where it's almost improvised in the studio and they're just flying through the songs.
Kind of add to what David said, there's a very train kind of going off the tracks kind of vibe to this album of like, it's almost going off. They reel it back in with the drum performance and just the variations of different things that he's doing that takes one riff and can make it feel 4 to 5 different ways. And you hit the nail on the head with the kind of power groove that's going on in here, which is my opinion on how this album is still tied in with the Damaged sound, is that power groove that's really locked in, that kind of chromatic feel that they've naturally got. And with his kicks locking in with all that, like there's a couple tracks on this record we'll get into that has this great triplet feel that just he locks right in with. And then like 4 seconds later, he's, just bomb blasting the entire time. It's like, okay, this is my type of drummer. Just give me this shit that, make me laugh.
The opening to Cyberwar. I mean, that fill in the beginning of that is like, dude, it's so fast. It's such a fast fucking song.
And it's long. It sounds like a Tony Loreno era Nile fill or something,
I mean, this is where that triplet feel comes in for me, because it's just immediate, just straight after the fill. Just this kind of triplet fill with these verses that is just fucking locked in. It makes me think of, God, I can't remember the track on Agorapocalypse now. Or Agorapocalypse, sorry. Got two things tied together. That's got this wild triplet feel.
Oh, is it, what's it? It's like, dun, 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 dun,
yeah, that one right there.
Oh, what is that fucking song? It's like something Rising Sun or whatever. I forget.
Yeah. And it's all over. And then this track has obviously the black metal kind of tonalities all over this record, but there's very much a Gothenburg kind of feel in one section of this song with this great minor chord progression. I mean, I just happen to be wearing a Dissection shirt, like that kind of vibe going on with that stuff. What a fucking record. We're on track 2.
You brought up a great point. There's like so many parts on this record too where they'll be like, yeah, we threw this part in here. Is it coming back? Nope. See ya. Like, yeah.
That was it. Enjoy it.
So what is cool is they do some really, really intelligent songwriting that's intentional, because at the last part of the song, that first fill that was just Maddie at the start of the song is replayed, but Hilly is playing over the top of it. So it's like, it's a hook, but it's disguised. So I got a lot of respect for artists that do things like that. And also, like, I'm not sure that I've ever heard Kevin's vocal phrasing as fast as it is on this track. It's fast. Like when we were talking earlier about, Corey Taylor and stuff, like he's got that rapid fire phrasing down in this. And the melodic section that you were talking about is definitely, I also picked up on that, where this sounds like maybe this song was written very close to Token Remedies Research, because there's quite a lot of that on Token Remedies Research, particularly the song called The Mirror Perils, which is one of my favorite Damage tracks. But yeah, it very much sounds like this may have been one of the earlier songs written for this record for that reason, but I don't know. We didn't ask that question, but
the next one, we'll get him on the next one. David, thoughts on Lifestyles?
Man, talk about laughing, and like you love records that make you laugh. Like I laugh every time I listen to this song, because I don't know that they were consciously doing it, but there's like a 2-step section.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Oh my God. There's like so many times on this record where I'm like, man, a fucking hardcore band would be stoked to have written a part like this.
Seriously. It's like, it's mixing like two-step with more of that Daryl Abbott, like feet rolls. And then there's like interchangeable like black metal chord blasts used at the tail of these two-step sections. And it's just this, it's this like blended smoothie of like, how do you possibly get these opposite, like, you know, the farthest ends of these musical spectrums and dilute them down into these 5 to 10-second sections of songwriting that just seamlessly bursts out of this record. The detail that these guys have got through their evolution of playing together it blows my mind. And this this section in this song makes me laugh because it just feels like it's just making a mockery of so many bands. It's as the Australians would say, it's taking the piss.
There it is.
And I also really like that this song has got Hilly's overdubs that almost sound like sirens. You know, it's like a Trey Azagthoth kind of motif, but it sounds more dangerous because it sounds urban, because the guitar kind of sounds like this, you know, police siren almost, you know, when I listen to it. So yeah, and Lifestyles also is you know, it's the brand of condoms, so I think it's like polarizing and funny in that way as well. Like who would call the song name after a, you know, why not though?
The back and forth between Skitz and Hilly with how they're playing together and recording, like this is the track that really stuck out to me. Every single drum fill has guitars synced up over the top of it. It's like every single note is accounted for in there. And you know, it may just be like some sort of tremolo note or whatever it is, but it's all locked. Like there's no movement going on. It's all locked in and tight as it could possibly be. And you know, it's funny, we're talking about the front half of this record with all these Pantera-esque kind of back and forth with the groove and the feel. Like it's pretty well all over this record. It's an album that came out in 2000. Like, how could you not be? Like, how could you not be influenced by that sound? You know, they were the biggest metal band at that point. And hearing it done in many different bands throughout the years, but hearing it done in this type of like grind umbrella is so much fun, because the only other kind of pairing I could think of other band that has this same kind of feel with a different style of music would be like Decapitated. You know, Vogue has that Dimebag thing down. I think he always has. I've mentioned to Austin for years, I'm like, that's the guy. Like, that's the guy they should have gotten. That's the guy. I'm
right with there. You right there. I will die on that hill too, man.
Yep. Yeah. And this album has that same kind of, there's still that 4 on the floor kind of Pantera groove, without it being the forefront. You know, groove metal was this weird subgenre that became really popular in like the early 2000s with like the MTV2 generation. And it was like, it's a groove metal band. Oh, like just stop. It's all right. You know, bands have done it. There's ways you can do it really well, like on this record, and there's ways you can do it that are pandering to everything else. But this track, just great representation of that.
Head trauma.
Have lots of it.
Yeah. Oh, I believe it.
Yep.
And without an iron burner too.
Without an iron. I'm just talking full on.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this is a great fucking track. Like, tremendous fucking track. Definitely some Fear Factory stuff going on in this track to my ear. Morbid Angel influences all over this album. And the guitar playing, the octave choices, everything. I mean, that low octave kind of drone that's the Morbid Angel thing to me. Those early Morbid Angel records, it's right there. God, dive bombs on this track. The one instance of, at least to my ear, that there are dive bombs all over the record. It's like for a couple seconds dead center of the track. great. I mean, I can't gush anymore about this fucking track. And Kevin sounds like Kevin no matter what he does, and he sounds great. And his vocals they're extreme, but you can actually legibly tell what he's saying. He enunciates. He's very conscious of that. I mean, even in the most chaotic, stuff such as the early part of like Cyberwar, like you can still tell what he's doing. It's not just, he's not just making a sound and it's just hollow sound without and he's just moving his tongue around. Like it's precise. He knows what he's doing is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah. There's so much variety. I feel like his delivery is just like, I mean, not only what he's doing performance wise, but I love, and I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit later in the record, but some of the effects and some of the stuff they did in the production studio, just like I don't know, there's just some, especially on I can't wait to get to what is it? Oh, like Breathe Deep. Like there's like a song like that. There's some fun stuff on there I'm sure we'll get to, but what do you think about this track, David?
I'm with you, Dylan. Like this is a very memorable song. And this is also the song that Skitz remembered being his favorite, and he had not listened to this record since the early thousands when we spoke to him.
It's been brought up a few times here and there. A couple of friends of mine have done drum covers of the song. Ironically, it was the same song. It was Head Trauma. And I remember that song very, very well because I think that was the favourite one off the album for me. Just the riffs, just nasty. Just there's a vibe about it. It's got that rock. It's gutsy. I find that's probably one of the strongest tracks on the album, and it's definitely the most memorable one for me. 100%.
Was that an easy song to write, or was it one of those songs that took a little bit of finessing and reshaping?
It's funny because I watched the video of my friend Jared from Destructor play the song, and I was like, wow, I actually didn't realise there was this much involved in the drums and the guitars. I actually downplayed it in my mind that it was a lot less anything. Like there wasn't really a lot of technicality or anything like that, but I think there's a lot more technicality than I gave it credit for. I didn't realise that.
So yeah, this song manages to do that with the groove of Morbid Angel. As you said, the other thing, I love Hilly's riffing style, and in this song too, he does that famous stepped chord, which is what Swans and Hate Eternal are famous for, where they're basically playing one finger per fret, extending over 3 frets and 3 strings. So it creates, a perfect octave on the lower note and the higher note, but the middle note in between it is completely dissonant. And there's a lot of those chord shapes on this song, and that's also just one of my favorite chords, and I use it all the time too. So it feels like a homely song for me. So yeah, Head Trauma, and what a cool title. I mean, you could just call it Trauma, but Head Trauma it's the best variety, isn't it?
Another great track title, Into Annihilation. I don't know, every time when I've just been like, when I listen to it, I'm like, even with knowing that, they went through a pretty tumultuous time, like it sounds like the recording of this was like at least like fun as shit. They sound like they're having a fucking blast on this record. Yeah, I fucking love this track.
I mean, you get second wave black metal right out the gate, right? You've got that. I even hear like Cryptopsy in the back half of it with all the pinched harmonics. It's like, oh, okay. It's like with his drumming performance, like it fits right in. It feels like None So Vile, where everything's being pushed, nothing's on the grid, everything's being pushed really fast, and you get the ebb and flow. And like I heard those pinch harmonics as quickly as I did and went, okay, this is Cryptopsy territory. This is my neck of the woods. Just a fun fucking quick kind of blackened tech track that I really enjoy.
Yeah. It almost sounds punk to me as well, in the sense that like the whole song's like a higher register. Like the riffs are just played much higher up on the fretboard. And it's also the happiest sounding song on the record, which I think is perfect because you've got a song about nuclear war and this is the happiest track on the record.
I'm glad you mentioned the kind of punk rock aspect of this, because I think what we're seeing on this record is that there's not a crazy amount of distance between a certain aspect of grind and a certain aspect of black metal. And it is kind of all tied in with punk rock at that point. Because you look at like a Dark Throne, right? Like that's as close to punk, I guess, as you could really get with their later era output. But you look at it and you look at grind and you go, okay, throw in some makeup and a couple more like traditional minor chord voicings and you've got primitive sounding black metal.
Yeah, I agree. I would also add to everything could be mashed up with intelligent songwriting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
yep.
The size of the balls on this band, I don't know how they fare with your dogs, but they're pretty big.
God's balls.
God's balls. One of my favorite tracks, Conman.
Oh,
I fucking
yeah.
love that, like, I don't know, Covenant era Morbid Angel fucking riff in the beginning.
I said domination, but
I said domination
yep.
too. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The other thing that's really cool is I feel like the sequencing of this record really accentuates their mid-pace jammers. They put them right after these really, really nutty kind of closes on the previous tracks. And it does give it a really good, just dynamic and flavor to the record. But yes, very domination, mid-paced.
But then, fucking Skitz with that double bass on it is like, God, those fucking legs, man.
I mean, that's that kind of Morbid Angel thing, right? Like the Pete Sandoval thing. The riffs are kind of more mid-tempo or even like halftime, and like Pete's just, those feet are fucking going. Like it's a Hate Eternal thing too. Like the feet are just fucking going and the riffs are just hitting you right in the gut. I will say there's, I know Austin's not as familiar with it, but David, you might be. There's kind of a Fear Factory Return album that came out in like 2004 called Archetype.
Was that the one with Christian playing guitar?
Yes.
That's actually my second favorite Fear Factory record, next to Demanufacture. I love that record.
It's a great record. It was a return to form. And this track makes me think of the track on their Cyber Waste. There's an old video of like Christian showing how to play Cyber Waste.
I remember it.
And I remember that video and I heard this and I went, there's no fucking way. Like, there's no way that this band didn't somehow weave its way through there with the early 90s and playing Australia. I went, there's a little bit of that going on here, but that overdub is what gets me a lot. Like,
are you talking about the end?
Absolutely.
British, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's like they just took the faders and just rammed them high when that thing came in. I kind of just titled it as the digital necro guitar sound.
I thought, because when it, you're listening in headphones and it kind of cuts back and forth between, it was like the best way I could describe that tone was like, it sounds like the distortion from the Power Rangers theme. I don't know, like what, like it's just, that's instantly where my brain went, but it is a choice. I will say it's an interesting choice, and this record's full of them.
Yeah, so that was the tone that Riley was referring to, this very specific part with the 1968 red iconic Marshall cabinet. So yeah, I don't know if there was a different cabinet that was used for the other rhythm tracks, but yeah, that cabinet was synonymous with this very specific section of the record. So thank you for your contributions there, Riley.
One of my favorite tracks of the record, Breathe Deep. I think it's like maybe one of the more melodic thing. And this is kind of where I was like thinking earlier, like, man, they're going so fast, yet I'm able to hear everything. And like, I am able to catch that melody that Hilly's playing with, it's great.
The opening riff is one of my favorites on the album. It's fast. It's just fucking perfect. It sounds, I can't remember the title of the track because I put a lot of the Barnes era stuff out of my mind. But it sounds like a track on the Bleeding, and I can't pinpoint what track. And maybe Pickaxe Murders. That riff seems very similar to that. And it just stuck out. It's like, oh, it's a great fucking riff. There's stuff on here. And it may be the melodic sections you're talking about that has this SYL kind of feel to it. Something off of like, I'll say self-titled because I can't remember the album I was going to use as a reference point. And then there's even some stuff on here that I would hear in later kind of Roadrunner Records output bands, like Chimera is a big one, like their self-titled record from 2005. There's this kind of weird pummeling part in the middle of it that made me go, okay, that's that kind of Cleveland Chimera thing that's going on there. Again, just a really rad fucking track with some great stylistic choicings on it.
Yeah, I love this track too. And yeah, good ear on that Cannibal influence too, because I definitely picked up on that. This song also really showcases, I guess, like a quadrant of the Melbourne sound, in that there is another drummer called Matt Rizzo who also played drums in Bloodduster and Hellspawn, which was the other band that Maddie went to sing with in the sessions just a couple of weeks after this. And Rizzo's drumming and Maddie's drumming would almost be identical if you were to ask who is who on this specific song. So if you were to listen to the See You Next Tuesday album from Bloodduster, the drums on that record are very much influenced by Matty. So I'm reminded of Matt Rizzo on this song, even though he's not performing on it. And the vocals on this, there's a couple of things I really love. I love the evil laugh and the delays, which happen a few times on this record, but there's like a particularly fun one on this record. And the chorus, you know, I chose my life, I chose. It just makes me want to just like fist bump with a beer in just like a sweaty pit and just sing. There we go. Just,
yeah, brother.
Oh my God, why did I do that?
There's that great shot of the band playing with Kevin that I think was in the notes, and I think Kevin's worn that same cowboy hat for the last 20 years. And there's some guy in the crowd just going, "Cowboys rule, man." And I just picture him hearing that during this part of this track. And it's just like, oh man, all right, just going for it.
I wonder if he tracked with his hat, because it kind of sounds like he did.
You gotta get in the mindset, man. You gotta get in the right mood.
He used to do a Decibel article before Neil from Krieg did, and those were my favorites because it was just the ramblings and rantings of a guy like, I had to paint my bedroom today, or like I'm building a deck, and like going off on a tangent. And it's like, God, I don't know this guy, but I feel so connected with him, even though I'm 15.
I fucking love the end where it's like you think the song's over and then it just fucking explodes.
Dude.
Oh,
pure chaos. And it gets faster.
Yeah.
It just you just hear it go off the rails. That's completely it.
It is utterly unhinged. Like when Matty had quoted this, maybe you can drop this in, you know, he said, you know, that hatecore thing, I 100% believed in it. If you were to just put that after a snippet of this, just with his vocals, and it just takes flight into who knows where, it's nuts. But yes, that is. I love to think that they would have been laughing in their space writing this song and thought, what do we do from here? And it's just like, what's the cue for that? I don't know.
You know, we've talked about this, but hearing shit that makes you laugh, like my lovely girlfriend has watched me like review albums, and like she'll watch me just listen. She goes, "You're laughing. What are you laughing about? I go, you have no idea. Let me explain this to you for about 10 minutes. And one in particular was like the most recent Wormed album, which was just shit after shit, just constant. And she's just like, you're just laughing. I went, you have to understand, like, I'm not well. Like, this stuff is so good. And this is one of those albums that, like, I've listened to this thing constantly over the last handful of weeks, and every time I listen to it, there's something on it that continues to make me laugh. And this is just one of those tracks and moments in particular.
Follow the Man. This has one of my favorite riffs. I love this riff. It's like pretty much like played throughout the whole song. It's pretty straightforward, but this one stuck with me. I like this riff a lot.
This is another track where I really heard that kind of triplet feel, that decapitated kind of vibe to it. I may be wrong, but there's definitely some of those. I used to call them stacked power chords, but there's those great add nines on this album, which Austin Chuck from Death does these a lot. Those add nines, huge sounding chords, right?
Yeah,
you know,
they're beautiful sounding as well.
Yeah,
I've also got that in my notes. Like these open chords, they just sound beautiful. Yeah,
the large add nine chords that are in on this, and which gives this very Deftones, Fear Factory kind of vibe with their more melodic points. And those add nines, if they're used correctly, can add such a tonal change and can add such a just great mood shift to them because of how they sound. They're big, lush sounding chords.
Yeah, I think the vocal placement between these chords is really, really good too. You know, he's singing "Been a war for inner peace, follow the man, follow the man." It's so catchy. It's so cool. And you know, I think it's the closest that we've actually got to like a sing along. On this record.
Yeah.
Like I could almost, you know, with the right energy and the right audience cues, you could totally have an entire room singing Follow the Man, which, you know, I would have loved to have seen. But super catchy song. It almost feels like this song was written for vocals in mind, so that, you know, the vocals were really the center point. And it's great that it's this far down in the album, but I also feel like this maybe could have been track 4 or 5, possibly. And, you know, this, along with another couple of songs, would have been great to see with like a video clip.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
David, after World Obliteration, thoughts, feelings?
Yeah, so Skitz, you know, this is a Terrorizer cover. Skitz commented that, you know, they chose this because they thought it would be a good song to do with Kevin Sharp, but there's actually less vocals in this song than any of their originals. So I thought that was cool. And the the other thing is, I think this is like it just shows that if Pete, the Commando Sandoval, ever had to dip out and had to miss a couple of shows, Matty Skitz could definitely jump up onto the throne or the milk crates, which he was maybe performing on before he upgraded to buying himself a professional drum stool to fill in. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is a classic song. It's been covered by a lot of bands. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's an odd choice. Like if you didn't know Terrorizer, it would still fit in with the rest of the Damage songs. But yeah, how'd you guys feel about it?
It just reminds me that, you know, he had mentioned that they were influenced by this band. And, you know, just even, you know, talking about this band and learning more with you, it seemed like they were pretty good about selecting some neat covers. Like I think we discussed the Bathory cover that they did in prior releases. Yeah. So yeah, I agree. I think it fits nicely. It doesn't like feel out of place. Like, and I think it's a cool addition to the record. Baldini?
Just a fun cover that everybody enjoyed. My approach was, I'm sure they just wanted to hear like Kevin do this Terrorizer track, and I'm sure he's like, sure, I grew up listening to this shit too, so why not? He definitely seems that guy, just roll with the punches kind of thing.
Open Season. This is another favorite of mine. This is I called this the skit song because there are just so many fucking the kind of drum solo opening, and then there's like drum breaks throughout the song too. And I mean, fuck. Some of that phased out guitar
phases on the drums at the intro. It's on everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. This is actually my favorite track on the album. And, when we talk about the phaser, this intro is basically like a huge Dave Lombardo drum fill right into the intro of Hellbound, which is the first track on Pantera's Reinventing the Steel.
My God, you're right.
Which came out like just a few months, 4 or 5 months before they went into the studio to record this. So I don't know what the band says, but to me, they've heard Reinventing the Steel. Obviously, they're jamming a lot, and either, subconsciously it's come out, or they've consciously decided like, oh, we basically have to do that entire Hellbound section because it's so sick. But it's basically the Hellbound verse, I guess, but they're using it in a different place of their song. The other thing is there is there's a fantastic clip of this song being played from the promotional tour that they did with this, and in the middle there's a big junk 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 riff in it. There weren't a whole heap of bands doing like this, like proto breakdown, basically, where it was just isolated down to just like a single open note. So what's really cool is that's a big section of this song, but when they return to like what I call like the pre-beat down or pre-breakdown or whatever, Hilly again plays it with like way more aggressive palm mutes and these like other technical flourishments that he hadn't done the first time. And it, as a guitar player listening to these guitar compositions, it's just so interesting for me because I relate. I don't ever want to play songs that aren't keeping me on the edge of my ability, but also keeping me stimulated mentally while trying to retain a heaviness that ties in with other hooks, but building on hooks with technicality. So I think that's why it's probably my favorite song. And it's just really fucking heavy. Like this song's really fucking heavy.
That 3/4 or 6/4 section in the center of it that just keeps having these variations added to it is obnoxiously good. It is like I heard that and went, all right, this is where my brain goes most of the time. And I agree to what you just said, David, which is if you can use technicality in a way that makes a song interesting or catchy, do it. Don't use it for the sake of just doing it. Your band's a great representation of that as well. It's using that technicality to make the songs that much more interesting, as opposed to, hey, here's, 6.5 minutes of just wank and just riff soup. This is a track I noticed some of those early Machine Head kind of vibes too, with the sliding high octave thing that's done. It just made me think of like the More Things Change or like 10 Ton Hammer or something like that. Great fucking track. Drum outro with Kevin screaming, but could have been a Skid screaming over the top of that as well.
Another pummeling fucking track. Freeks and Geeks. Freeks, EEKS, I guess. I fucking love the interplay between Hilly and Skitz on this one as well. There's like the the like just like really choppy or stabby kind of riff that they do. It's like it's all just locked in together. Super effective.
To me, this is the most recognizable track on the record just because of Kevin's like the whole cadence of I'm the freak, I'm the geek, like just going off at the end of that. I'm like, this is an old man in traffic. And I think this the track where he's almost talking about like being a bike messenger or something like that. At least that's how I interpreted it.
What are the lyrics? Pull them up. What are they?
Let's see. Running weed through downtown streets, dodging cabs with fuck to say. Bet your ass don't hit concrete. Man rolls in, you'll pay. The freak show and geeks. Pager blows up, time to hit the streets. Yeah. What the fuck? This is great. Weave the traffic like a fucking lunatic. Breathe the diesel, almost got curbed. I'll swing a chain through this fuck's window. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that. I'd love to hear Kevin explain like what that is analogous to. But what is interesting was the EP that Damage released, Passive Backseat Demon Engines, has got a tie-in that's kind of similar to this with traffic and these like this. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. I hadn't picked up on that before.
Wonderful.
I'm walking here.
And he says he's not a lyrics guy. Dylan's not a lyrics guy.
I heard that and was like, I got to look into this. Like, there's a reason he's screaming that at the end of this song.
Yeah.
And I went, there's no way he's not like a bike messenger during this point. Like, that just, like, oh God, I got to get this over to the fucking blimpies across the street. And like, some dude just fucking cuts him off. And like, he just has a bike chain, just slings it.
So did you write the lyrics on Purified in Pain, or was that both Kevin and yourself, or what was?
No, it was just Kevin.
Okay.
Kevin, I basically just said, like, to Kevin, you write whatever you feel like you want to write. That's up to you, and that's what he wrote 100% as his own lyrics. I felt like that was pretty important, and I didn't like to think that we were going to put some sort of a restraint on his creativity as far as like his own input, and I really wanted him to be as vocal as possible, really. Like, yeah, and just do his own thing, because I thought, look, this guy's been doing this for a long time. He knows what he's doing. Go for it.
Aside from that, like, it's got some dissonant vibes in this song that you see creep up a little bit here and there on the album, but overall, it's not the most dissonant sounding record. But you get a little bit of that in this track. I marked it around 145 on the track itself, that there's this great tremolo picked riff that I love that's got a little bit of harmony in there. Just a hooky, catchy fucking song.
Yeah, I definitely latched onto the riffs too. The weirdness of them really reminded me of Gurns playing on Sounds of the Animal Kingdom era Brutal Truth. I don't know if that was maybe them trying to curate some material that maybe appeased what could have been the damaged lineup with, half of Brutal Truth potentially. But this song to me is a little lens into where that sound could have gone. With possibly Danny playing bass as well. I also love the cheeky "fuck yeah" from Kevin on this song, and the end of this. I don't really know what to make the end of it. There's a couple of things I've noticed. It almost sounds like, if you listen to this pretty closely from 240, it possibly sounds, I mean, we didn't speak to Adam, so I don't know, but it possibly sounds like this was kind of edited together. Like, it just sounds like there's a little bit of smearing. And is the last riff a nu metal riff?
Okay. I actually had it written in my notes as new mosh.
Okay.
So
I'll take that as a yes.
I feel the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that they did enter that new territory, albeit not for very long. But, Roadrunner, you fucked up. These dudes were ahead of the game by at least 2 years. So
Just on the topic of Rotten, two bands that, I mean, like Acid kind of ahead of their time.
Yeah.
Maybe Slipknot even taking some cues from that band. Like, you get like this other band from Australia that's like kind of dabbling in some uncharted territories as well. Like, just really, interesting.
I mean, not seeing these guys on a bill with like New Era, Vision of Disorder, or
That's
early
what I was
Soulfly.
thinking.
Yeah. Like, I mean, like early Soulfly or something like that. Like there are bands that Roadrunner signed during this period of time that nobody remembers. And I think if you had dropped something like this, where it's blending extremity with these kind of mid 90s, early 2000s, power groove, I think this band would have done pretty all right with the big machine pushing behind them. And then when Slipknot rolls through, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, I would have loved to have heard the Riff Factory that would have been VOD playing imprint era material with Damaged. I mean, that would have been a showcase.
So, we get to our final track. Dylan, would you do the honors?
For a good time. Write Morbid Angel riffs.
Yeah.
Awesome album ender to me. It's got Morbid Angel worship all over it. I mean, there's these great layered screams, kind of around 43 seconds in. It's made to sound like it's Kevin being really long-winded like he was in the opening track, but there's definitely a layer there. There's two different versions and they're verbed out a little bit to make it just sound more wide. I definitely hear some more hardcore influence on this track. There's like a couple like mosh parts at the end of it that is definitely par for the course with this band. And there are these just multiple variations of all those parts going on that this band's known for. Skid's effect to take one riff and make it sound like four different riffs in the matter of 30 seconds is pretty impressive. We've talked about how sometimes all you need is one riff. A lot of these tracks on this album, it's just one riff with some additions added on to it to structurally make it fun.
Absolutely.
It's still catchy songwriting without being just standard verse, chorus, verse, right? And this track is a great representation of that. Again, I will say I would have loved to. I felt like this track could have been somewhere else on the record, maybe earlier in, and maybe like Freaks and Geeks ends out the album with just like Kevin going off at the end of that track and just we're done.
I was going to ask about how you guys feel about the sequencing of this record.
I agree with you, Dylan. I actually feel like this is I don't feel like this should have been the album closer. I feel like this song's a bit of a riff salad. It's incredibly tight. I would have liked to have heard a version of this song that was cut in half, so it was like much more of like a grindcore length. And I would have liked to have heard this between two of like the mid-paced, domination worship song opener tracks. I don't know what my favorite song potentially could have been to close, but this will be a curious one to kind of throw around the round table. But I'm curious to know what you would have thought as well. But I possibly think that the Breathe Deep's ending would have been such a ballsy way to close a record, because it just descends into chaos, and it would have bookended the front end of the opening scream so well. But I also feel like Follow the Man would have been an amazing kind of sing along to close it off, and also be analogous to just like, I'm Kevin Sharp, I'm putting my stamp on this band, follow the man. Like, I feel like that would have been the big balls, move. So he starts off with a scream to cement his place, and he would have closed off saying, fuck you, follow me,
I like that. I do. the thought of, you know, a lot of great records do this as well, where you end it like you start the record, right? I agree. I think I Breathe Deep would have been a cool closer as well. Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't, when I got to this track, I was like, I think it's good, but I wasn't feeling as like pumped maybe as like as I feel like I should have, like with an album closer. I felt like maybe, yeah, this could have been somewhere in the middle, perhaps.
Yeah, I think that's the general consensus then from you know, the three of us. I mean, potentially, maybe, who knows? Maybe that's why there was, you know, a little bit of you know, critical commentary on this. Maybe that was the last, you know, the last flavor that they got. I don't know. I mean, there's also the sample that was quite contentious within the band as well.
That's right. At the end of the record, there's a sample on For a Good Time. What is that sample? Do you know?
Yes, I do actually.
Would you prefer it leaves a mystery, or I'm just curious?
No. That actually was a point of contention for Kevin. That sample. Yeah. It was from a thing called Blue Murder, which is a mini series, or 2-part mini series, that is about the 1970s, 1980s police corruption in Sydney, New South Wales. And it was about this corrupt cop who died a few years ago, Roger Rogerson. And it was about the criminals surrounding that and all the corruption that was going on in the New South Wales police force. And that particular scene is like one of the kingpins, Nettie Smith, who's like a notorious hitman, multiple criminal enterprise type guy. He had the green light from the cops, and they go out on a boat with this lawyer who was corrupt, and he'd done the wrong thing by a few of the key players. And they are all standing around having beers, looking out on a nice, bright, sunny day. And then they turn their attention to him. They grab him, wind a coat hanger around his feet, and then they tie him to a old iron stove, and they chuck it overboard, and he drowns.
Holy shit.
And they're saying goodbye to him. And it's like a message to certain people.
Yeah.
But Kevin was like, do we have to put that on there? Like, he said, I want my mum to hear this album. And he's like, I don't want my mum to hear this see you later, you know,
wild
message with the see you next Tuesday word. So there was an argument in the studio with Hilly and Kevin, and Hilly's like, nah, it's going on the album. That's what's happening. Kevin goes, whatever. If you want to put it on there, that's up to you. And that was the end of it.
That was a big fucking word, especially back then to Americans, though. Like, I think as Australians, we kind of just forget just how almost blasphemous it is that word was.
It's only sort of like in the last 10 years that America sort of has adopted some of that.
Yeah.
And that word itself. And when I hear American people say that word, I almost feel like saying, hey man, like please, you know, like that doesn't, it's not good.
Yeah. You can hear the apprehension in them saying it too. It's like, can I say it?
Well, it's seeped into a lot of American Hollywood movies and TV shows and stuff. Now I've heard it said way more than it used to be. Like, it was a taboo word, and Kevin outlined that like back then. Like, we actually had discussions about that and the differences between the way that Aussies speak. And, you know, like, I remember saying to Kevin when he was here, I said, "Oh, do you want to get pissed?" And he goes, "What? Get angry? What do we need to get angry about?" And I said, "Pissed, like drunk." And he's like, "Is that what you say in Australia to get drunk?" I'm like, "That's one of the terms. Like, it's a totally different thing. Like for when you're getting pissed in America, it's like you're getting pissed off with someone." So I understood that, and I was like, I felt like maybe that shouldn't have gone on there, but it went on there, and that's another little story.
There we go. For a
Yeah.
good time, I guess.
Yeah.
That was a good time.
It was a good time. We get to the end of the record. They essentially do this promotional tour, November of 2000. You 3rd through the 25th, kind of.
So in Australia, because our cities are so far apart, we typically do clusters of weekenders where you may start on anywhere between a Thursday and a Sunday, effectively in group 2 to 3 shows within those windows. And that's just to make sure that people are actually turning out on Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays. It was less common at this period of time to be doing Mondays through Sundays touring. So yeah, Australian bands, they typically toured very differently. Where you'll see a tour flyer and it's like, oh wow, these dates are spread over like 5 to 6 weeks, but they're only playing 10 shows. So yeah, it's a little bit of a difference touring Australia and then touring other places. But even then, driving, you got to consider driving from Melbourne to Sydney. Realistically, people say, "Oh yeah, I do it in 8 hours or whatever." But it's like when you've got a van full of equipment and you're taking extra petrol stops and stuff like that, it's more like 10, 12. So they're not easy drives. And the tour was without Terry though. The Australian tour, anyways, was with Eddie, wasn't it?
Edward Lacey, yes, from the Wolves.
Yes, another band that everybody should have heard. Their demos have actually been put up on YouTube now, which is amazing. Finally, yeah, I know, right? So we can all go back and listen to those. But was Terry not interested in touring, or he was not able to tour, or
No. And if Terry hears this, I apologise in advance. We had a falling out, and with Matt, with Rizzo, and that was due to the upcoming gig that we played. And for some reason, with the actual billing of the support acts, we'd talked about it, and then I'd gone ahead and I'd booked some support acts, and one of them was meant to be Terry and Matt's band, Order of Chaos, and I didn't do that, and that caused a falling out, and so Matt and Terry left Hellspawn, and that's why Eddie joined to do that tour. So that's how all of that ended up, unfortunately. It's like I've been thinking about it the last few days, and some things you just look back and go, "Oh, I wish that didn't happen like that. I wish I had have not made that mistake or whatever. I didn't mean to have a falling out with band members, or these things. These things happen with multiple bands on the daily. It's just things that happen, and you just regret and whatever."
mate? I mean, bands are so hard. I mean, just look at, you know, Ed from the Wolves. I mean, I don't know what was going on internally with the Wolves, but they should have been touring. They should have been releasing albums as well. And, I mean, it's all internal, right? But how was touring with Eddie? Was that also, because it looked like he was having a blast. I just want to say thank you for sending through those additional live photos. They were amazing to see. And there is one video on YouTube that is available that I could find. Anyways, I think it's the same with you, Austin, unless you've found anything else. But I think it's open season as well, isn't it? Or
Okay.
but it's got Ed playing guitar, and I think it's at that Parramatta date. But it looked like
Oh
he was,
yeah.
yeah, it looks like he was having a blast. Energy looked.
He did a killer job. I mean, he's a very passionate player, and he really fit in perfectly. Like even looking at the photos of that show in Melbourne, because that's where those photos were taken at the
Oh, was that Hi-Fi?
Hi-Fi Wall Street, whatever you call it. Um, and it was, yeah, he was just right into it, like smashed it. He was very, very good at what he does. So he was someone that was great for the tour. Really did a great job, and if he sees this, I can only say great things about his playing abilities and his actual dedication towards that. He did an awesome job.
The open season one is the 2-minute clip, but I didn't even see this one. There's one at the Tivoli Hotel in Adelaide. There's like a whole that's like the whole set.
Oh, Tivoli.
Oh,
sorry. Is there?
Yeah, it's like a whole
Tivoli. Yeah.
Please share. I'd love to watch that.
Send it in here just for.
Thank you.
Wow.
Oh, very cool.
Okay, I didn't know. I didn't even know. But I remember that Tivoli show very well. I actually remember it quite well.
A couple of cocktails from Kevin, or
Kevin was making cocktails on stage. Even handed out, he'd make cocktails and just hand them out to random metalheads at the front.
That's beautiful. Yeah, he was
He's
killing
one
it.
of these.
The hat and the leather pants.
Yeah, the hat.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, Kevin.
He's a character. But he's got so much charisma on stage. Like he's just he's just got that energy that suits the front man persona perfectly. And he relates with people from that perspective as a front man so well. He holds the band like exceptionally well. One of the best in that old school extreme metal scene for sure.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And with Kevin coming onto the record and doing the tour, was it the intention for him to be kind of a permanent member? Was it already like discussed, like clearly there's some distance between us? I'm gonna come in, I'll do the vocals on this, we'll play it. What was the dynamic with that like going forward?
I wanted to continue as a permanent member, and that was completely the intention. Personal things in my life at the time, and a bunch of other reasons I just don't even want to really probably get into right now. But I basically stopped playing drums. I stopped communicating with Hilly. I really, things sort of started to lose momentum after that. I think it all went to sort of like a peak, and then it also sort of like went downwards after that, and just a bunch of things got in the way, certain things that just life stuff that just stopped it from sort of going down that path. And then it lost that momentum, it lost what it was like the intention of what it was meant to be. So a bit sad in that respect, I feel, but hindsight. just hindsight, really.
And then it was after that tour that there was talks to maybe get Danny from Brutal Truth in the band. That didn't work out. And apparently Hilly and Matt were writing new songs after Purified in Pain. I think he mentioned there were a few, a couple or a few songs. There may be some demos of those out there somewhere. Maybe we'll get to hear them. Maybe we never will. It would be an injustice if there's any demos of damaged post-Purified in Pain that remain locked away forever. But that was basically it, really, until the band was picked up with a different formation with Terrorist. And then Terrorist disbanded and they started up a brutal death metal band called Insidious Torture, which is like the most brutal shit I've ever heard Maddie do. It's really brutal. It's fucking sick.
When you kind of look back and, on all the shows you've played and all the records you've been on, how does this record, Purified in Pain, kind of stand out? Or, where do you rank it amongst, your experiences through extreme music?
Just having the fact that since you guys got in touch with me and thinking about it every day, and bringing back all the memories of that time frame and just going, seriously, I don't think I had as much fun out of all the music that I've ever played, regardless of whether I regard that album in the middle or at the bottom or at the top or wherever it would rank. As far as my own personal experience about that tour and about that time and about the writing and all this other stuff, it was very, very, very positive and very cool and very, very prominent memory as far as all the stuff that's happened within the 40 years. It'd be up the top in the top 10 of experiences that would be probably the best.
Wow.
It was a good time.
That's fucking awesome.
And
man.
I think there's a song on the album actually called For a Good Time.
Yeah.
Which doesn't sound like a typical Damage song title, but fucking being happy and actually enjoying that was just, it was I couldn't replace that with anybody else or anybody, anything different at that time. So nothing but positivity from my own perspective, regardless of anybody else's fucking opinions or anyone else coming in saying, "Oh, but this isn't this." Well, I don't care. That's not my experience.
A lot of history here. A lot of stuff that I, would not be privy to without your recommendation. I'm so stoked that we got to talk to Skitz, and you can find the full interview. You'll be able to listen to that on our YouTube channel. It's almost 3 hours that we talked to him. He was so kind, and to kind of go through his nearly 40-year-long career.
Man, yeah, it just on that note, thank you, Maddie, and thank you for just being so candid and so open with us as well. To anybody that's interested in just hearing a very endearing and charismatic character, that's as humble as it gets, I implore you to go listen to the story of Maddie Skitz. And although it goes for nearly 3 hours, it's just it's not a drop in the ocean of the contribution that guy's made to extreme music that everybody should be supporting, because he's one in a million. So thank you, Maddie.
I want to, before we kind of move on and kind of close up shop on Purified in Pain, Dylan, I would love to know, having no history with this band and coming in and listening to some of this discography, what's your takeaway from it? How are you feeling, if anything at all? I would love to hear your thoughts.
It's a wild fucking record. And I know I've universally said I'm not the biggest grind fan, and Swindle always puts me in my place. He basically states, you're not the biggest grind fan, but the grind you like is the craziest fucking shit that you can find. This feels like something I would listen to quite often, again, just because it is intense. It's short. It doesn't sound like Soylent Green, but it feels like that type of vibe, just that chaotic energy that's all tied into it. Kevin's on it. I've always enjoyed Kevin's vocals on everything he's done, from Lockup to Venomous Concept, any of that stuff. This is a fun fucking record. And has me looking into some of the other Australian bands that David has mentioned. I just took down the Insidious Torture name so I could look that up later and check that out. But this is a great fucking record. I got no complaints about it at all.
Yeah. I mean, sitting down and listening to this for the first time, we've kind of talked about laughing, right? And I just remember, like, I can't remember if I was like editing or doing something else. We were just like talking back and forth, and like I turned this on and I'm just like, what? Like, this is so fucking crazy. Like, it's so insane. And I will say, like, maybe the production is not the best on this particular record. Some of the sounds are there some interesting choices on here. I think the way the songs are written and just the performances in general, like, I'm so blown away. And it's such, I'm glad that it exists for us to listen to. Maybe if things had gone a little differently, maybe depending on like the label support, this would be more of like a household name. I feel bad that I hadn't heard of it until now, but I'm so fucking glad I did. And if you're listening to this, episode, you should definitely check out this band. But David, as a person who grew up listening to this band and being a part of the scene, what do you think the legacy of this record is? What do you think the legacy of Damaged is? What do you hope people will get out of it when they listen to it?
It seems like most serious musicians that are aware of Damaged have had a level of their sound influence and or inspire them. So I'm happy that this band's magic has, it's available because, although this band, I believe in my heart of hearts, should have been as big as the biggest names in extreme music, there's an underdog quality about them that just makes it so much harder, and just gives me more passion about the band. So, I also really appreciate that Matty is such a nice guy, and the perception that I have and the associations that I have with this band are positive for that reason. So, if Matty was an asshole or something, I'd still listen to this band and I still love this band, but I don't think that'd be as special to me. So, I think as far as a legacy is concerned, there's memories that people hold from seeing this band, especially in their prime, as just being like the best band that there was. Unfortunately, I missed seeing them on the Token Remedies era just because of my age, and the periods of time where they weren't playing music. But, their records have left a little bit of their DNA in me, very kindly, Dylan's mentioned that, those little technical embellishments that are part of the guitar songwriting on this record, have been utilized by bands that I play with. So I'll hopefully have more Damaged to preserve through my own interpretation of their music. But they're just a very, very inspiring sound to me, and very, very happy to nerd out about my passion for them. So I appreciate the platform to spread the positivity. Oh, the other thing too is Maddie, what is a riff?
I love that ultra palm muted, chunky, rip your face off fucking vibe. Like something like the as a reference, I would say something like Malevolent Creation, Retribution, that just sheer rip your face off, chunky, nasty fucking riff. And then the speed ones, like those ones that just drew your fucking ears out. Slayer, Raining Blood, Creator, Pleasure to Kill. Just that nasty, dark, evil goodness that just gets into your soul and just fucking smashes. Chunky, evil picking, evil chords, octaves like the Triassic Thoth. What's another exciting? The King Diamond lead guitars. Andy LaRock. That sort of guitar playing. The Judas Priest riff. Just want to make you slam your fucking head into fucking get your head banging, cranking. Just all the good shit about the heavy metal guitar sound that just makes riffs just like unexplainable sometimes. I think that sort of sums it up.
All right, this is the part of the show where we like to share things we've been listening to, things we think you should check out. I just have a couple this week. Heaven's Gate, the new Heaven's Gate record dropped. This is the debut LP from the Tampa crossover quartet. It's called Tales from a Blistering Paradise. I was like super into I believe their self-titled like EP that came out like maybe a few years ago, but this was like surprise release on April 18th through Beach Impediment Records and To Live a Lie Records. This is members of maybe some of my favorite people from across heavy music. I mean, you got Tony Foresta of Municipal Waste and, Paul from Cannibal Corpse as well. Members of Warthog and Horsewhip. But it's a fun fucking record. I just love shit like this. I fucking love anything that Tony does. So if you're looking for a good time, check out Tales from a Blistering Paradise, Heaven's Gate. And then my last rec, Night's Oath by Full of Hell. This is going to be dropping on a 10-inch record that they're doing on May 16th. Broken Sword, Rotten Shield. It's going to be out on Closed Casket Activities. I believe I heard or read somewhere that Spencer, the guitar player, originally wrote these songs for his other band, Reaper's Gong, and maybe that band shifted in a different direction, but he repurposed them for this 10-inch, and I fucking love it. It kind of reminds me of some of the stuff that they did on their previous full length. So I love it. I love the experimentation that this band does. They could write, a million of their fucking like just really fast like death grind records, but I like that they're kind of opening up to. I mean, like I think Spencer even said on the last record they were like, what if Butthole Surfers like put out a grind record like this? Maybe what it would sound like. So I fucking love it.
I think this band in their practice space just has a bowl full of 20-sided die, and they're just like, "What are we doing?"
Yep.
They just roll them on the floor and just fucking go for it. Like you can never expect anything from the band because they're going to give you something different each time.
Yeah, and I'm sure this isn't even going to be like the last thing that they put out this year. So, Dylan, what have you been listening to?
A lot of things, but two in particular. I have been awaiting this record like the second coming. It's the new release from Conan. It dropped as of recording yesterday. Violence Dimension. I'm a little blown out on doom metal right now. But this band takes the cake because there's a level of like, no pun intended, but there's a level of violence to their playing and what they push through on every single track that is just laughable. It's unfuckwithable. There was a point where I was working on some stuff earlier and I had it in and I just stopped and was staring into space like, God damn, this is a great record. It's their 7th full length, first for Heavy Psych Sounds. It's the follow-up to 2022's Evidence of Immortality. It's also the first release with former Fudge Tunnel bassist David Riley. It's about an hour long, but man, it's heavy. This band is heavy. Second thing is it's a demo or an EP, whatever it is, but it is a artist called Angel or Angel. It is the son of Emperor's Isan, who just released this a few weeks ago, and I happened to catch it through like Isan's socials, and I gave it a check, and like I saw Nurgle shared it. It's like, I'll give it a shot. It's 3 or 4 songs. It's really fucking catchy and good, and the kid recorded it all by himself. Like it's pretty fucking rad, and for like black metal, which can be pulled in multiple directions, like it's got influence from the second wave, but it's also its own thing. There's some modern touches to it. Maybe some Opeth stylings from like Blackwater Park era in there with like chord voicings and everything. It's really fucking cool. And I think he's like 17. So like, check that out.
Well, this is sick. Like there's lots here for me to check out. So I appreciate you putting these on my map as well. Look, honestly, I've been on a bit of a low IQ kick lately. I just don't want to think, you know.
Yeah.
I've just been listening to a lot of dumb shit lately. So I've been listening to there's a band called SEQUESTRUM, a Danish death grind band with members of, you know, Undergang and Frenolith. And SEQUESTRUM play it's the closest thing to a sewer that I can really think of. They use a lot of samples of sewer-esque soundscapes. But they mix this really cool blend of like old Carcass kind of death grind with these, you know, they pepper in these like blues grooves, kind of like what Dead, Pungent Stench, Bloodduster would do, but they're definitely more on, you know, the low pitched, you know, down-tuned death grind side of the spectrum. So they released they've released a few things, but they did a split with a band called SNET in 2024. It's only a few songs, but I really like I really like the production. I think the songs are really cool. So I've been found myself listening to that a little bit. And I've also been listening to a lot of Soils of Fate, particularly I guess their most popular record from them called Crime Syndicate. And this is basically Sweden's answer to Destroy the Opposition from Dying Fetus. And it does have Kevin Talley of said Dying Fetus record playing drums on this, but it's basically Destroy the Opposition Part 2, but just a lot more ignorant. So none of the technical you know, sweeping, well, not as much of it anyways, and just kind of really staying in that beat down territory. So it's a great album to, you know, go to the gym with or drive too fast to, and, you know, not have to think. So yeah, Souls of Fate, Crime Syndicate, and SEQUESTRUM side of the SEQUESTRUM and SNET split is what have been on heavy rotation with me recently.
Sick. I'm gonna throw one more in there. Listen to Atre Bilis, Homicide. It was one of Dylan and Nye's favorite records from last year.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't do that. Just don't do that.
What do you mean? What's wrong? I don't understand.
All that.
Follow Fulci Rots for all your fucking awesome, gory wearables. I fucking love all the designs that you put out. David, anything in the works? Anything that you'd like to share with us, or just?
Yeah, music wise, I guess. Yeah, we got a couple of shows coming up. I think they would have passed by the time this comes out, but in that instance, we would have just played Manitoba Metal Fest with Atheist, Origin, Sanguisugabog, etc., etc.
When's that?
That is May 9, I think.
Oh no, this comes out next week.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, I'm just gonna.
Never mind me. You Winnipeggers, come on down. We got that coming out on our agenda, and we also have two shows, two rural BC shows with Soth from Seattle. So we're playing Kamloops and Kelowna, which will be good. And then we're actually very excited to put the touring tools down and finish writing LP number 3. So we actually just had a very nice conversation with our producer last night, and everybody's very excited to book in some studio time for LP3. So we are locking down a deadline to make sure that, we can nourish the rest of everybody with our riffy goodness without too much delay. So yeah, just spending a lot of time in the studio, just writing and finessing new material, which is sounding like stupid heavy. Maybe it's all this Soils of Fate and Sequestrum that I've been listening to, but it's very, very fucking heavy. So excited for that.
Hell yeah. I'm looking forward to it. Dude, thanks again. Love talking to you and love talking about great fucking records. And that we definitely wouldn't be here had you not just sent me that fucking crazy Damage record.
Man, it's a pleasure. It feels like I just get to hang out with friends doing this and just just rejoice in nerdom, which is what I'm all about. So yeah, literally any opportunity, recorded or not, to just talk about music, I'm all for it. So the pleasure is all mine. Thank you for suggesting that we do this record. Thank you for the two of you for actually listening to the record and investing your energy into it. I genuinely really appreciate it, and the perspectives of yours for music that I also listen to opens my mind up more as a listener too. So I appreciate the two of you very much. So thank you.
Thanks again, and I hope to do it again soon. Listen to Purified in Pain. Listen to just Damaged in general. Follow Atre Bilis, Fulci Rots. You can follow us at Riff Worship Pod, Instagram and Twitter. We got official playlists or whatever in the link below. But for myself, for Dylan, for David, for Swindle, wherever he is in the world, you've been listening to Riff Worship. We'll be back next week with something else. See you later. Bye.